I call this November 5th Planning Commission meeting to order. Thank you for joining us tonight. We have 3 items on the agenda tonight. The first one listed on the agenda was deferred by the applicant until December 3rd. So we're going to start with the second one after we consider the minutes from the last meeting.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve the meetings for October 1st, 2020.
Second.
Motion has been made and properly seconded. All in favor, please raise your right hand. Motion carries. First item on the agenda is MP-20-05, Advanced Care Medical /3900 Brookside Parkway. Michael Woodman will present.
Thank you, Chairman and Commissioners. The first item before you this evening is a master plan amendment to add clinic as a permitted use in Pod D of the Brookside Master Plan. Applicant is proposing to convert the former Arby's restaurant with drive-through to an urgent care clinic for advanced care medical on a 1-acre site zone C2 general commercial. Clinic is a permitted use in the C2 district, and it's also listed as a permitted use in pods A, B, and C of this master plan. However, it is not listed in pod D. Have the location map on the overhead. The subject property is located at 3900 Brookside Parkway. It's at the southwest corner of Old Milton Parkway and Brookside Parkway. The property and surrounding properties are Zone C2, except that the property across Old Milton Parkway to the north is the Pembroke subdivision, which is zoned R10. Tires Plus and Brewster's Ice Cream are located to the west. Zyka Restaurant is located to the south, and the Chevron gas station is located to the east. The comprehensive land use plan designation of the property is commercial, which allows the proposed use. The Brookside Master Plan was approved in 1997 for 132-acre planned development, which included office and retail uses. Pod D has a land use designation of commercial, which allows a variety of commercial and office uses. While a medical office is allowed within this pod, as I mentioned earlier, clinic is not listed in Pod D. Here's some street view of the location. As I mentioned, this is the former Arby's restaurant. And then this is the applicant site plan. The applicant is, this is a 1-story, 3,390 square foot building. They would reuse the building. They would remove the drive-through facilities that wrap around the south end of the property, and then these parking spaces that are highlighted here would be restriped. And the restriping, it would be to bring that parking lot up to current ADA standards. Access will continue to this property, will continue from Brookside Parkway. The Unified Development Code requires 17 parking spaces for this use, and there will be 67 parking spaces remaining on the property after restriping. We looked at the site just to see if there are anything on the site that wasn't meeting code currently. The main thing that we saw was the landscape strip along Old Milton Parkway, and at the corner of Old Milton Parkway and Brookside Parkway looked to be missing some of its required trees, so we have a condition that would deal with that. We looked at traffic for a clinic use, and the clinic use would generate 65 weekday daily trips, which is 734 less trips than the previous fast food restaurant. This item was shown to the public on the October 14th, or at the October 14th Community Zoning Information Meeting. There were no public comments at that meeting. This is again, they're going to reuse this existing Arby's building, and we do have a condition that would deal with what the exterior changes, some conditions related to the exterior changes. The applicant did provide this building elevation, which is not this is not this particular building, but this is representative of the materials and the overall look that this user is looking to use at their various locations. Staff reviewed the proposal and finds that the master plan amendment does not conflict with the established criteria. The request is compatible with properties in the vicinity which are developed with office and commercial uses, and the use would represent a significant reduction in trips generated from the property. If approved, conditions are recommended limiting the use to an urgent care clinic only. And with that, staff is recommending approval subject to the following conditions. One is the site plan specific condition, so that would limit it to the submitted site plan. Condition 2, add clinic as a permitted use in Pod D of the Brookside Master Plan at 3900 Brookside Parkway. 3, clinic use shall be limited to urgent care clinic only. 4, this is the condition that deals with the exterior of the building. Exterior building modification shall require final approval by DRB. Existing brick shall remain and shall not be painted. Primary colors shall not be visible on the exterior of the building, and glass shall not extend to the ground. 5, prior to CO, developer shall address drainage issues resulting from a clogged inlet at the southwest corner of the property as approved by staff. 6, pedestrian access shall be provided from the building to an adjacent public sidewalk, including striping through the parking lot as approved by staff. Conditions 7 and 8, I do have some changes. These are staff requested changes to these conditions. With respect to condition 8, we are recommending that we strike condition 8 altogether. There is already an existing sidewalk on the Brookside Parkway side of the property. In fact, there are sidewalks on both Old Milton Parkway and Brookside Parkway. This sidewalk is a 5-foot sidewalk with a 2-foot planter between the sidewalk and the roadway. And so we're recommending deleting condition number 8 in its entirety and amending condition number 7. And I do have this written out that I can show on the overhead in case anyone is interested in it. Condition 7 would be reworded to say, if necessary, additional right-of-way shall be provided along Old Milton Parkway and Brookside Parkway for future sidewalk enhancements and roadway improvements. Additional right-of-way shall not impact existing parking and landscaping on the property. And the applicant has agreed to this change. And just want to talk real quick about 7 and 8. If I could. So the reason why we originally had condition 8 in there requiring the larger sidewalk, 6-foot sidewalk, is Brookside Master Plan has a series of trails within the master plan, and I've highlighted the trail system in yellow. Of course, the Big Creek Greenway is over on the west side of the Brookside Master Plan. So we found that the trail amenity is something that we would like to see expanded on. So the reason for initially having the larger sidewalk, the purpose for that was to allow for a connection down to these trails in the master plan. And then, of course, the original condition number 7 was to address the situation along Old Milton Parkway. So GDOT does have a plan for Old Milton Parkway improvements. However, there are no planned improvements along the frontage of this property. So we still would like to have the ability to get additional right-of-way along both Old Milton Parkway and Brookside Parkway in case the city would like to, at a future date, install larger sidewalks. Of course, there's an effort to create more walkable communities, and so that would be the need on condition number 7.
I have a question on that one.
Sure.
At what point would the determination be made regarding whether or not additional right-of-way is needed?
It would definitely be looked at during the land disturbance permit process. However, if we are not ready at that time, it is possible that we would need to go back to the applicant after the land disturbance permit. But hopefully we'll have a little bit more information. There's no funding for any sidewalk projects in this area. Like I mentioned, the GDOT project, this is it. There are no improvements associated with that. So we'd have to find funding for that project before we requested any additional right-of-way.
Thank you.
Condition number 9, drive-through facilities shall be completely removed, including drive-through window and impervious areas associated with the drive-through lane. Former drive-through areas shall be landscaped with trees, shrubs, and ground cover as approved by Design Review Board. Condition 10, developer shall assess and replace dead, dying, and missing required landscape material, including missing trees in the landscape strip along Old Milton Parkway and at the corner of Old Milton Parkway and Brookside Parkway. Corner of Brookside Parkway and Old Milton Parkway shall be heavily landscaped with ornamental plantings. Condition 11, developer shall provide the required bicycle racks. In condition 12, building, site, and landscape plans shall be subject to review and approval by the DRB. And that concludes the presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Woodman?
Michael, I have a question about the parking. And I was over there the other day, and I see that they're going to need 17 spaces, and they've got 67. So that gives us 50 spaces of asphalt that are not going to be necessary or required. Is there any way that we can put in there a requirement that some of that be made into green space or landscaped?
You can certainly address that question with the applicant. That's not something that I've discussed previously with the applicant. And the reason why is because we do think that there could be a situation where they would need more than the 17 parking spaces required by the UDC. There are other uses. The other properties are all developed around here as well. And there'd be a potential opportunity to share some parking. But certainly we can discuss that with the applicant and see if they'd be willing.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly how you would do it, but I was just thinking that, I know that we're trying to get more green space, and that if we don't need this parking, that, and if the building use changed in the future, they could always go back and put parking in, but meanwhile, give us that opportunity to put in some kind of green space.
Sure.
Michael, I have just a couple questions. So, bicycle racks, is it just standard? You just want bicycle racks and everybody knew?
Yeah, so this property was developed before we had our bicycle rack requirement in our code. And so I just wanted to clarify, since it's a reuse of this building, this is an opportunity to enforce that newer section of the code.
And then you said that this was an approved use in pods A, B, and C, but not D. Any reason why it wasn't a D?
I looked back through the history of the master plan. I couldn't really tell why it was allowed in those other 3 pods, but not in this one.
Okay. There wasn't a reason to exclude it for any.
It doesn't appear that there would be any real reason to exclude the use. We find clinics both in commercial and office environments, so we believe that the use would be appropriate in that pod.
And then number 4, the DRB and some of the issues that you had with primary colors and all that, are those standard across everybody in that area? Is that something that you're asking all new applicants? Is this something unique to this that you're very specific in primary colors, glass, exterior, those things?
Yeah, so that condition and parts of that condition come from various architectural, building design related conditions that we've seen in the past. I would say the primary colors, I've definitely seen that in previous conditions. However, the reason why it was added to this one is because there are some primary colors on the building currently. They're red awnings. And so that was the main purpose for putting that.
Okay, so it's across the board. It's not just for this. All right, that's all I have. Thank you.
Yep.
One of the challenges of this area is access to the tire shop and the ice cream store coming from the east side, because you have to go through their parking lot. but there is no other way to get to the other stores apart from driving through around here. Any other questions? Or hearing none, I will ask the applicant to come forward and make a presentation.
Thank you, Commissioners, for your time and staff for your excellent report. I really don't have much to add to Michael's report there. He did a great job. I will address that, take your comments about the landscaping, additional green space. I'll take that back to the owner and address that with him. Talked to him yesterday on several of the comments, and he said and reiterated to me that he wants to be 100% city-friendly. He wants to come in and be a part of the community versus just trying to come in and build a building and renovate. So we'll definitely take that into account.
If you could also, that specifically at the corner of Brookside and the Old Milton Parkway, it looks like that corner, it's got some landscaping in there, but it looks like it might be an opportunity like for a little pocket park or something like that. So just to take a look at something like that.
Okay, yeah, we'll definitely look at that.
Okay.
Other than that, I'm here for questions. Please let me know what you have.
Any questions?
Is this a 24-hour urgent care?
No, it is not.
Okay, and is it going to be affiliated with a hospital system or any other chain, or is it standalone?
I don't know if it's affiliated with the hospitals, but this is their own, this is a new brand. I think they finally just finished their first one in Illinois. But their intent is to be a kind of their own little network of facilities with surgery centers and lab services, and also with pharmacies across the country. Be able to be a network that they can come in, but they want to be in smaller communities that are growing and have smaller clusters of them together so they can service their clients more in a family atmosphere.
Okay, and final question, is this, will you have EMS services as well? Will there be ambulances coming and going, or?
No, I do not believe so, except for emergency situations only, is their intent.
Final question. Sound like that TV show.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm monopolizing, so I wanted to give everyone like, I'm done, this is it.
I got two questions for you, just kind of more of elaboration. One is, I think we just saw a little bit of Mr. Woodman's report, a little bit about the renderings, or I guess one of my biggest concerns is not going to look like an Arby's going forward, right? You talk a little bit in more detail about the level of construction. I know you're going to have DRB and all of that, but how much it's going to be kind of renovated from the position it is today. And then talk a little bit more about the business, how many doctors you kind of have in here, how many rooms, I guess, you kind of have the examination rooms and medical rooms you kind of have, and what you're going to look to service.
Yeah, and I'll speak as much as I can as a civil engineer on the building side. It's a little harder, but as with speaking with architects, definitely removing all the branding elements from Arby's, making sure, as Michael pointed out, all the primary colors. There's several pieces on there that are red, and we'll make sure those are completely covered up. Several of those windows do go from ceiling down to the floor, and we'll make sure those are infilled appropriately with materials that are allowed based on the DRB's review. And in filling that, and the reason why I brought that elevation was because of the brick color, and that's the one that we showed is a ground up, so it is a little bit easier to kind of match those. But that kind of shows the design intent that we're looking at, to make sure that our facades are not just uniform looked across there, that we will utilize the existing brick and use a complementary brick or something else to make sure that it has a cohesive look with the site and also the surrounding buildings. As for the interiors, I've been told that I think it's looking at 6 exam rooms. I'm not sure the amount of doctors that we'll have. I haven't heard that count yet, being on the site side of things. But I do know that there's 6 exam rooms, and they are looking at, the reason why we've been brought on board is because of COVID. We've been looking at the internal flow to the building to make sure that we are appropriately providing space for people and making sure that traffic inside the building is not crossing one another, so that you're able to enter the building, go into the exam rooms, and then exit through a separate door.
Any further questions? All right. You'll get some time to speak or answer questions after the public comment. Anyone here in favor of this application, please come forward. Seeing none, anyone in opposition? None in opposition. I close public comments. You have anything else you'd like to add before I turn it over to the board? No. All right, thank you. All right. Anyone, the board, it's on your hands now for a motion and or discussion.
It always amazes me the resilience of the city of Alpharetta. Like, you can have these different buildings, have challenges and headwinds in the market, and then immediately you have a new opportunity to kind of take the space. And I think my only concern on this was just making the space doesn't look like the existing space, where it just looks like an Arby's, right?
I mean, versus curly
That's
fries.
my biggest concern in this one, is just DRB does a really good job of just making sure the building looks good. That's my comment. With that, I'll go ahead and keep going. I'll make a motion to approve MP-20-05, Advanced Care Medical, 3900 Brookside Parkway.
Second.
Motion has been made and properly seconded. All in favor, please raise your right hand. Motion carries. It's going to be heard by City Council on November the 16th. All right. Second item on the agenda is PH-20-14 Unified Development Code text amendments, updates to International Building Code and Fire Code references, and Michael is presenting.
Thank you. Again, the next item is consideration of text amendments to the Unified Development Code and Code of Ordinances to replace references to specific building codes with a reference to the city's building permitting procedures documents. And the purpose of these text amendments is to avoid updating the UDC and the Code of Ordinances every time we get new versions of building codes. So basically, just quickly show you what that looks like. There's a section in the Code of Ordinances where all the various building codes and their associated current additions are listed. And so we're recommending striking all those specific references and replacing it with references to the Alpharetta commercial permitting procedures, Alpharetta residential permitting procedures, and the Alpharetta swimming pool permitting procedures. And those documents are documents that we have down in community development available for developers. And basically, this is the commercial permitting procedures. And page 4 of this document lists all the current codes. This document is not in the code, it's not codified, so we can make changes to it whenever we need to. Whereas in the Code of Ordinances or in the Unified Development Code, we have to go through this process of a public hearing and bringing it before these boards. So that's all we're proposing, and there's one other area within the Unified Development Code. It occurs in the Historic Preservation Incentive Zoning Ordinance, where it references the current International Building Code as well as the current International Fire Code. And so we are proposing to remove that and referencing the new section that I just showed to you and lost already. There it is. So this new reference comes back to the Code of Ordinances. And that concludes the presentation. If you have any questions.
I apologize, Mr. Woodman. Mr. Chairman, as a matter of procedure, we had made a motion on the last case, and I did not reference the revision of striking number 8 or the revision in number 7. I apologize about that, but I don't know what the procedure. Do we redo that motion, or are we okay?
You can always ask for reconsideration of any motion, but the board has to vote on it to reconsider it. if that's what the board wants to do, but you did not reference the conditions. So it would be implied that just as they were presented by staff.
Okay.
But I would leave that to the board. If you want to reconsider it and add that as an amendment, that would be fine. You can make a motion to reconsider.
The only reason why I'm saying that is I think number 8 is in the conditions, and you wanted that taken out of the conditions.
Yeah, that was part of my presentation, that 8 would be stricken and 7 be changed as I had read it. I guess I had assumed that your motion was per
I
the
apologize.
presentation.
I meant
It's
to say that.
implied, and the reason I say that is because that was part of the staff
Okay.
presentation. We did not discuss changing it, amending it on the floor. That was what is recommended by staff. So I,
Like Francis said, that's the intent. The intent of your motion
Okay.
is in the discussion.
Okay.
he's already, in their paperwork, they've already corrected it, and he presented it. So it is part of the package. We did not amend it here on the floor.
Okay.
So it's perfect as is.
Okay.
But just as a procedurally, if somebody wants to change a vote or you want to add something, you can always make a motion to reconsider an item. It has to be approved by the majority, seconded and approved by the majority, then you can start discussion again. But in this case, I don't believe that's necessary.
Perfect.
You're good.
Thank you.
So Michael, I just want to clarify on this. So basically, all this that you read striked, if any of these organizations update their codes, it automatically would update with Alpharetta. So you wouldn't have to go through the process. Is that what you're trying to do? Just
Will, when the codes change, the additions of the codes change, we'll just update it in our permitting procedures document instead of the code.
okay.
Yeah.
That's all
Who
it is.
came up with that brilliant idea?
Our city attorney, I cannot take credit.
I say that because I've worked several years ago with a major city you would recognize, and this creates a lot of problems, updating and revising, and a lot of things become so dated, years old, because there's so many references. So when you make it this simple, it's very easy to make the change and be compliant. So that's why I thought it was very brilliant to do.
Can't take credit.
To the
I tell the other city to do the same thing.
To the extent that there would be updates, is it the intention to sort of flag the fact that there's been an update someplace on the appropriate website or something to say we've updated the procedures to be inclusive of the following?
We do keep the permitting procedures document on the website. I don't know that there would be like an actual announcement or anything like that. But anytime that we have changes to those documents, they're always updated in that procedures document.
Okay.
Yeah, these codes get revised periodically, and again, if you had to go back and do the revision on the code every single time, it's very tedious. But the Alpharetta commercial permitting procedures, you can just do that and police the new ones. So that's what makes it a whole lot easier. Some jurisdictions say as amended, so it's left to the applicant to go and look at the most current code, which they generally would if they are a professional company, but this makes it a whole lot easier.
Out of curiosity, would you have any suggestions about other places where a similar streamlined approach would be beneficial?
I'm sure that there could be areas of the code where we could do something like that to avoid the regular updating, but this is definitely one that we've identified that needed to be addressed. But we'll certainly keep that in mind with future text amendments.
The only other area I can think of is in the transportation side, any standards, requirements, regulations, policies that reference standard codes. It makes it a whole lot easier when you do something, but I don't know what would have to be revised, but in the engineering side, probably. But it would be advisable for them to take a look and see whether they need to do anything.
Yeah. It's not a problem in our codes, but I know other cities they'll put like their fee schedules in their codes, and the fees change quite often. That can be cumbersome to constantly update those, but we don't have that particular issue.
All right, going to open this for anyone in the audience who want to, in favor, please come forward. Seeing none, anyone in opposition? None in opposition, so I'll turn this over to the board for consideration, a motion, and our discussion.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve PH 20-14 Unified Development Code text amendments, updates to International Building Code, and Fire Code references as noted by staff.
I'll second.
Motion has been made and properly seconded. All in favor, please raise your right hand. Motion carries unanimously. We'll go to the council on November the 16th. The last item on the agenda is PH-20-16, Unified Development Code Text Amendments, Stormwater and Floodplain Management. How do you say, is it Basnet?
It is.
All right.
It's very good. Thank you.
Basnet will be presenting.
Yes. So good evening. I'm Jill Bazinet. I'm with the Public Works Department. And joining me tonight is Zach Trulove. He's with our Community Development Department. So we're here to talk about changes to the Unified Development Code, Article 3, Sections 3.3 and 3.4. That's stormwater and floodplain. And I'm going to start with the 3.4, which is floodplain, because these are some fairly simple changes. We've got an addition of one definition that helps to provide our surveyors with the guidance so that they can get the right elevation, vertical elevation, when they're out marking floodplain in the field. There's a couple of typos that we've corrected, and then we have gone through most of our ordinances and changed the language from city engineer to city for responsibilities, and so that happened twice in this ordinance. There were two remnants of that. We had taken those out a few years back, and these two just kind of remained, so we wanted to make those changes to be consistent. So that's everything in 3.4. But 3.3 has a little more information in it, and if you've looked at any of the documentation that came in, you can kind of see that. 3.3 is based in changes from the Metro North Georgia Water Planning District. So in 2001, Georgia General Assembly created this district. It is the metro area, 15 counties and all the cities within it, and they were charged with creating regional, watershed-wide regulations and policies for all the cities and counties to maintain. So every so often, they pass new model ordinances, and they did that last December. So we've been going through those model ordinances and making changes, and we are required to have those changes approved by December of this year. So that's why we're here. If you look in your packet, there is one document that has text in black, green, and blue. That's the easy one to read because the red line makes it look like everything's red. Okay, so in black are the texts that don't change from our current ordinance. In green are the text from the new state requirements. And in blue are the city proposed enhancements that we're doing on our own. So we can go through the highlights of those changes if you'd like, or we can open it up to questions, or we can kind of do a combination of both. Whatever is
So
your
the
preference.
revisions you're making, just so we are all clear, is to conform to the model ordinance by the state.
Correct.
It's generally required, and I don't remember the last time we approved this. Was it 2019 or 18?
2017, we did a big update.
Yeah.
In February with council. So it would have been January, February of 2017.
Doesn't sound that long. Yeah,
I
I
know,
remember.
right?
And I think, did you present it?
And I had a consultant that worked with me on that
You're
one.
here, yeah.
So
So the city has to revise its ordinance to conform to the state's model ordinance. The city doesn't have a choice here.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's basically it.
That's basically, yes.
And you made some additional revisions.
We
but
did.
It generally conforms with the state, but you can add other
Correct.
things and be more stringent if you like to.
Yes.
And, okay,
I guess my question would be, for the average homeowner or the average,
Yes.
what is the difference between what we're doing today and what we're going to be doing once this is passed? I guess that's what I mean.
The biggest difference for a homeowner, if you are going to add on to your house or tear down and rebuild your house, right now, before 2019, the state gave you an exemption from stormwater management. In June of 2019, the state required the city to start enforcing stormwater management if you were remodeling or adding on and creating or replacing 5,000 square feet of impervious. That was a requirement in our state permit, and we've been enforcing that, but now it will actually live in our code as well. And so that's the biggest one that deals with an individual resident that would have to deal with. We have included some opportunities for flexibility with easements. If they have an easement that only benefits them, we do now have an opportunity where we can reduce the size of an easement or allow a permanent structure in an easement where we did not have that before. But that's really the only places where a single-family resident is going to see any difference.
did you say allow a permanent structure on an easement? Mm-hmm. What type easement?
So if a drainage easement only benefits that particular property,
Okay.
so they have a swale on their property, it collects their water only and takes it off-site. And now we are allowing them, with design review and permit through Zach, to consider maybe putting in a fence in that easement that doesn't block their own water and certainly doesn't impact somebody else.
So it's not like putting a building
No.
on an easement. That's what I was
Sorry.
getting to. Okay.
Yes.
Any other questions? Do you like Jill to go through the changes?
I don't think so.
Unless you have a specific question on one.
The other big change in there, and the reason why there's all that red, is that the state reorganized the entire ordinance. They did it to get rid of some redundancy, but also to mimic the development process. So now it starts with planning, goes through design and permitting, gives you the construction requirements and the maintenance requirements in that order. Makes it a lot easier for a developer to understand what they're supposed to do, and even the city to understand what they're supposed to enforce.
There are a lot of green.
Yeah, there's a lot of green. There's a lot of, they've added a lot more text to how to have consultation meetings and what needs to be sent into the city for review. Those are all things we were already doing here in Alpharetta. We just didn't have them in the code in this language that the state wants it in.
It started as a very simple model. It got complicated through the years.
So I'm just curious, it sounds like this is something the developers really need to understand probably more than anyone. So are they already doing this? Is this something that's going to require you have a workshop with somebody? Or is this something that they're already doing and they're already aware of?
They are aware of it. When the Metro District creates these model ordinances, they go through a lot of education and a lot of meetings for open public meetings, for people to make open comments. For a number of years, they've been doing that.
Okay.
So
This
the
isn't
development
anything
community-
new. I used to work for a civil engineer, and he did, this is exactly what he did, and I was just
Yes.
thinking about like my old boss going, he'd be blown away by all that. But I just wondered, but it's something they've already been doing for quite some time.
Yes, and all
Okay.
of the metro area is doing this. We've had a number of our surrounding cities have approved this as far back as the summer, so it's already been
They already well known.
going through.
Thank you.
Yes.
Any further questions? I do not see anyone apart from staff in the audience, so it's pointless to ask for public comment. So I just turn this over to the board.
Do that at your own risk, Mr. Chairman.
I'll turn it over to the board for additional questions, a motion, or discussion. This is straightforward, to conform it to the state and perfect it for the city of Alpharetta.
I make a motion to approve PH-21-XX Unified Development Code Text Amendment, Stormwater Management, Floodplain Management.
Second.
Motion has been made and properly seconded. All in favor, please raise your right hand. Motion carries unanimously, and it will go before full council on November the 16th. Is there anything else the board would like to discuss before we adjourn? Meeting is adjourned. Took us exactly 39 minutes.
What?
39 minutes. That's good. I estimated an hour. Yeah, I thought an hour. But we got one item deferred, so that did help. All right.